Your breath starts to shift your physiology. And, this is where I actually use breath specifically 3 different ways. So I use breath work tactically to allow clients to regain control in a situation, to reground, to become present again, be able to settle. I also use breath work strategically. So when a client's doing it like you're doing it every single day, what you're actually doing is, regardless of the breathwork practice that you're doing, and there's different ones that work a bit better than others, but regardless of the breathwork practice, what you're doing is you're starting to expand something called your window of tolerance, right? And your window of tolerance is your ability to handle chaos, adversity, disorder, right? To be able to handle stress without going into an extreme response, right? So you're able to work more effectively in that window of tolerance and handle more stress that would stress out other people. And this is a big point that I make.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Abilities Podcast. I am your host, Nick Earhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go. All right, everyone. So today I have John Hall, and I can't wait for him to share his story and tell you all about what he does. So, John, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a 30-year technology executive turned breathwork peak performance coach for executives, entrepreneurs, and especially founders. And this has kind of been a big part of my life's journey. I mean, I had no plans originally. I was like, I've been in tech for 30 years. I was with, Fortune 100 company, JP Morgan Chase for 25 years of that. And it was really a shift that came along that some changes in my life really had driven me into personal development. I started to get into this work and especially got fascinated by the mind-body connection. I was really fascinated by the way that our body and our physiology impacts our mind, and our mind impacts our physiology. And so some opportunities opened up, and I went down this path, and it's really been exceptional. I love being able, I had worked in technology for years as a fixer. I would kind of go into a troubled area, transform it, turn it around, hand it over to someone else. And I learned very early on, it's not just about the technology, it's the people in the process that make technology misbehave, right? Yep. And so I got very adept at working with people, really optimizing their performance, really understanding what made an organization achieve peak performance. And so being able to integrate the mind and especially breath, along with the body into this has been exceptional.
Yeah, I know a lot of what you're talking about, because like the more you take care of your body, the better your brain functions. I noticed that from myself. I've been taking care of my health a lot better than I used to, and it's like, oh, I have more energy than I used to. I can think a lot better. I sleep a lot better. So yeah, it's just really amazing.
Yeah, and there's been some fascinating studies that have started to come out around this, right? So the UK did a study where they took a group of clinically depressed people and they had them smile, just forced them to smile. Like literally, you could put a pencil in between your teeth and it forces your lips up, forces you to smile. Yep. What they found is taking this group of clinically depressed people and having them smile for 10 minutes in a mirror was actually as effective as Prozac in overcoming clinical depression.
Really?
It's fascinating. Amy Cuddy did a great deal of work around this as well. She found that if you did like a Wonder Woman pose with your hands on your hips or a Superman pose with your arms stretched out over your head, that just holding that pose for several minutes will literally increase testosterone, decrease cortisol, and it actually, which is a stress hormone, right? And not only does it release these chemicals in your body, it actually reshifts your brain to be willing to take more appropriate risk behaviors. So in other words, if you're willing to take risks that are appropriate and would actually pay off for you in the long run that you wouldn't take otherwise. So, and this is all from physiology, right? This is all just from holding your body a certain way that it's releasing chemicals in your bloodstream and it's shifting your mindset to be willing to either, break free of clinical depression or in the case of Amy Cuddy's work, be able to take more appropriate decisions. And this is across the board that I find this correlation, and I'm able to tap into this using the BPM frame.
Yep, and it's really fascinating how doing certain things like that can really change so many things that you would never think of. I know, like, for me, I have a couple meditations that I do, like I guided, and they have you do things like that. Hold your hands on your hips and say this. It really like gets you going and gets you excited. So yeah, it's really awesome. And then I do breath work every day. It's a big part of my life now, and it's just you can change your mood to what you want just by doing certain breath works. There's some for more energy, there's some for less stress. There's some to get motivated. It's just like amazing what you can do just by breathing. Because if you're listening to this, I don't know if you know this, but humans need oxygen, so it's kind of important. So yeah, that's awesome.
It's a great point, because I know a lot of times it's like, okay, hey, I'm going to help you with your breath work. And people are like, look, I've been breathing my entire life. Why do I need somebody to help me do this? Right. I know how to do it. It's free. I don't, but you're absolutely spot on, Nick. And I love that you are experienced in this, because you absolutely your breath starts to shift your energy level. Your breath starts to shift, your mindset. Your breath starts to shift, your physiology. And, this is where I actually use breath specifically 3 different ways. So I use breath work tactically to allow clients to regain control in a situation, to reground, to become present again, be able to settle. I also use breath work strategically. So when a client's doing it like you're doing it every single day, what you're actually doing is, regardless of the breathwork practice that you're doing, and there's different ones that work a bit better than others, but regardless of the breathwork practice, what you're doing is you're starting to expand something called your window of tolerance, right? And your window of tolerance is your ability to handle chaos, adversity, disorder, right? To be able to handle stress without going into an extreme response, right? So you're able to work more effectively in that window of tolerance and handle more stress that would stress out other people. And this is a big point that I make, right? Successful people don't have less stress. They have better stress management techniques. So I love that you've already built that into your daily practice.
Yeah. And I will tell you, when I first got introduced to breathwork, I was like, well, why? Like, this is not going to do anything. It's not going to work. It's not going to change anything. Yeah. And then I started doing it, and it's like the more I did it, I was like, oh, I see. It actually works, and it works very well.
Yeah.
And it's such a simple and free tool that everybody has. You just have to activate it and use it. And the more you use it, the better it is.
Well, and that's, and absolutely. And I'd love to hear some of your experiences that you have with breath work, but just to underscore that point of the more you use it, the better it is. It is just like, I hired a trainer years ago when I started going to the gym to help me, at the gym. And he shared this fascinating insight with me because, I started going in and lifting weights and everything. I'm like, I'm not bulking up yet. Like, what's going on? Right? Like, Jake, what's going on here? And he shared with me, he said, look, when you first start exercising, you start lifting weights, the majority of what you're building is a mind to muscle connection, right? What you're building is that mind to muscle connection before your body learns to effectively use those muscles before it starts adding more muscle, because it's expensive. Evolutionary standpoint, it's expensive to maintain muscle. So as we build these skill sets, right, we use breath work like you are doing on a regular basis. You're using a concept called neuroplasticity, which is getting neurons to fire together. So you're associating a certain breath with a higher energy state, or a certain breath with a more calm, aware state, right? And your body is literally training this, just like if you go to the gym and lift weights, your breath and your mind and your body are learning this connection. So the moment you go to that breath, I'm hoping you've had this experience, right? I imagine you go to that breath and you're like, almost right away, you feel your body calm or you feel your energy rise, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I actually did a podcast with someone not long ago, and his breathwork technique is, basically box breathing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take a breath in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, let it out. And he taught me how you can get that down to a 1 second breath work. And it goes along with what you're saying. You're training your mind. So
Yeah.
like, I
Yeah.
haven't practiced how he told me to. I haven't
Okay.
gotten into it yet to get it down to that 1 second. But I definitely know what you're talking about, because like, I like to do my 6 deep breaths in, and when I exhale slow, like I'm breathing through a straw. That's
Yeah.
one that I use the most often, because it calms me down, it gives me a little boost of energy, and I just feel a lot better.
So I love your breath description on this, because that's one of the breaths that's very calming, especially I'm imagining, is this done all the way down to your belly? So it's like a deep belly breath in through the nose and then exhale through the mouth. So I'd love to discuss the physiology behind it, like actually what's going on in your body around that breath. So the first thing to understand, right, about stress, and there's 3 different types of stress, right? There's something called new stress, which is a neutral stress. Like we hear about something bad happening somewhere else in the world. It doesn't directly impact us, but it's stressful, right? But it's kind of third-party stress. Then there's something called distress. And distress is what we tend to think of when we think about bad stress. And distress is this chronic stress. It's the feeling of overwhelm, that you don't have the ability to change the situation. And a lot of times we live in distress constantly in the West, because we're in this constant state of just, go, go, go. Our phones have distractions, right? We have so much that's going on. It makes it very difficult for us to calm down. And we go around jacked up in what's known as the sympathetic part of our nervous system. So then there's a final part called eustress. Eustress is good stress, and it's the stress that drives us to peak performance. And this is something I work very specifically with clients on, is how to transform stress to peak performance using my BPM framework, using the breath physiology mindset framework. But if we go to that breath that you described, right? So one of the things I found is we have to remember that stress or adversity, anything that's firing up our body, it is an evolutionary response. We have this response for a reason, right? If we were out in the middle of the woods and all of a sudden a pack of wolves came up on us, right? Our heart rate's going, right? We're going to dump all these cortisols into our body. We're going to dump different hormones in. It's going to prep us for fight or flights. We can run as quickly as we can, or we can fight the wolves. And this is a natural evolutionary response that our body built to allow us to survive. The challenge is that nowadays, right, we don't face many wolves, but what does happen is someone walks in and says, hey, this investment just went south and we have to make an immediate action on it, right? Or this proposal we have to completely rewrite it tonight, right? So what happens is, at the time that we need to be very logical, our body is having an evolutionary response that is completely triggering us and throwing us into a fight or flight mode.
Yep.
So we try to compound this. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but it's very common among my clients, which is we try to tell ourselves to calm down. We try to tell ourselves to get it together, right? So we have the little voice in our head going, okay, calm down, John, get it together. You need to focus, right? And it's like this little chatterbox in our head that's telling us to do something, which is, completely ineffective, right? It's like a 6-year-old girl telling an 800-pound gorilla to calm down.
Right? Yeah, it almost makes it worse.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because all we're doing is we're operating at the level of mind. And what's actually happened, right, depending on the level of severity of the stress, is that our brain has actually shifted the way it operates. They did, a gentleman by the name of Dr. John Gottman did research around this as part of relational theory. But he found that when our heart rate goes over 100 beats per minute in a stressful situation, the blood flow actually decreases in our prefrontal cortex. And that is our most logical decision part of the brain. So what happens is we get a hijack back here in the amygdala, and now we're in this right? We're in this response that even if we aren't in a full-blown fight or flight response, we're not seeing opportunities. We're not seeing creative solutions, right? What we're seeing is just either more threats or ignoring what's not a threat, right? Like it's like our this thing called the reticular activation system turns on, and all we're doing is seeing things as threats or potential threats, right?
Yeah.
So,
and
go ahead.
I feel like when you're an entrepreneur, that happens a lot. You know?
Well, exactly. I mean, that is probably one of the biggest single things of being an entrepreneur is you're dealing with not only external growth factors, external threats or crises, but you're dealing with internal ones as well. Right. Like one of the things that I'll talk about later is I built a program on my site called Overcoming Impostor Syndrome. Because, right, how many times as an entrepreneur, you go to build something, you step into a bigger role, right? Or an executive, you step into this bigger role. It's a new opportunity. And all of a sudden you're thinking, man, I don't belong here. Like this is too much. I'm going to be found out. I don't really fit in here. And so that's imposter syndrome, right? If you've ever taken a big step in your life, you faced imposter syndrome. And if you've never faced imposter syndrome, you haven't lived big enough, right? I'll tell you that.
And I want to say something about that. I listened to a Mel Robbins podcast not long ago, and she talked about the imposter syndrome. And she explained it this way, and I love it, and I kind of live by it now. She's like, you're not an imposter. You're a beginner. And that stuck with me because it's like, I'm doing something new. I'm learning. I'm figuring it out. I'm not an imposter. I'm just a beginner. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Yeah, I love that. I share that. I share something very similar in the course because it is absolutely, it's shifting the mindset, right? Because if our mindset is I'm an imposter, and there's actually, there's incredible research around this. So just to set this up for a moment, researchers did, there's the difference between willpower. Like, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to go make it happen. I'm going to put all my focus on willpower and make something occur. And identity, right? So here's an example. If you've ever decided that I'm going to be healthy, and so someone comes up to you and they go, hey, Nick, you want a piece of chocolate cake, right? And you go, I can't. I'm trying to lose weight. I'm on a diet. I can't do that, right? That's using your willpower. You're saying no to something you actually want. Yeah. But the other way is you shift your identity, you go, I'm a healthy person. So when they say, hey, Nick, you want some chocolate cake? You go, no, I don't eat chocolate cake, right? Because now it's part of your identity. You just don't eat it. You're a healthy person. You don't eat chocolate cake. Yep. They found the difference between a will-based approach and an identity-based approach. You are 50% more likely to achieve your goals with an identity-based approach than a will-based approach. 50% more likely. I mean, think about it. If I was to come up to you and go, hey, I can make you 50% more likely to achieve your business goals, how many people would sign up for that, right? Well, we're dealing with like 3%, 5%, 10%, right? And it's like, here you go. This is a simple shift you can do to be 50% more likely to achieve your goals by shifting from a will-based position to a identity-based position.
Well, I love that, and it makes total sense. It really does.
Yeah, and what you can do, so that same breath work you're doing every day, you can actually do, when I do breath work one-on-one with a client, I work with them for about an hour on this, right? I talked about using breath work tactically and breath work strategically, but the third way I use it is literally we work together for an hour and we get down into your, what I call the operating system level of your brain. And we start shifting identity and releasing limiting beliefs. So we can actually go in and rewire things and shift them around, right? I'll give you an example of this, a beautiful example. I had a founder who had built a business, and it was a high-end luxury rental business, and he built it prior to COVID, and then COVID came and just completely knocked this thing off. And he was really feeling frustrated because he's like, man, he rebuilt it, he recovered, but he was like, I should have been so much further along. I should have been so much more advanced than where I am now. And we worked together on this, and it was the most amazing transformation because he said, oh my gosh, I can see I'm exactly where I need to be. And not only that, I have all the skills and all the tools I need to accelerate even more quickly than I ever did before. And he went from this place of frustration and coming in every day and going, I've got to keep moving forward. I've got to make this happen, into all of a sudden this shift of like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like you can literally see he looked 10 years younger. He looked 10 years younger from the shift that we made in the identity.
Wow. That's so cool. Just really, and so powerful for you, to take a client through that and really change their life, and that's what we do as coaches. We're really helping people improve their whole entire life, and it's remarkable.
It is one of the greatest things, right? Is to, like I said, I was in technology for 30 years, and technology has made incredible advancements for our societies, for individuals, for cultures, but human potential is so untapped. Human potential is so untapped. And, that is really, right, what you're doing, where you're working with clients and we are making that kind of transformation. It is just, I don't know. I love it. I get really excited about doing this and then being able to share these experiences with people like you.
Yeah. And can you tell us more about your BPM?
Yeah, absolutely. So the BPM framework, and originally came up because I was thinking of like when you're stressed, right, your heart rate starts going up and your beats per minute start going up. And I was able to really bring it down to breath physiology mindset. And I'll explain the reason why, because it's a very straightforward toolkit that you can tap into anytime, any place, and it's incredibly effective. So let's say, for example, that you are starting to have decision fatigue, which is a very common state that we may have as an executive. We start feeling overwhelmed. We start feeling like we can't make any more decisions. And what happens, right? We defer decisions. We delegate decisions that shouldn't be delegated, right? And now what's happening is we aren't really at peak performance. We're starting to slide off of that scale. So one of the key things we want to do is be able to reset our mindset. But if we just try to go in and tell our mind, we use that voice in our head to go, okay, let's get it together. Let's make this decision. Let's do what we need to do. Then we're not going to be as effective as shifting back to an energized state, right? It's just not effective for that voice to try to overcome our mind chatter. So one of the things that is really neat about the breath is you don't have to think to breathe. It happens automatically, right? There is no conscious thought that has to go to breathe, but we can easily bring conscious awareness to our breath, and we can breathe in a way that relaxes us. We can breathe in a way that energizes us. We can breathe in a way that refocuses us. And the beautiful thing is that two things happen. First off, when we do that breath. So number one, we're refocusing our mind from all the chatter and noise and everything else that's going on around us, and we're focusing in on the breath. And people think so often that mindfulness is the ability to clear your mind, but it's really not. It's the ability to focus your mind, right? That's what really makes people successful, is the ability to focus their mind. So I start with the breath, and we bring the breath in, and the breath is both focusing our mind, but it's also signaling our body to signal the mind to energize, to calm, to recenter, to focus, right? Then coming into the P part of it, right? The next thing we do is we double down. So there's different physiologies. Like one of the things that we tend to do when we get stressed is we collapse in and we hunch our shoulders in, right? That's why we have, right, our backs are so sore all the times, because we're just crunched in, right? We're overworking these muscles and the chest and compressing in. So we can make some simple physiology shifts, right? We make some simple physiology shifts. Now what we're doing is our body is signaling to our mind that we're activated or energized. So our breath is signaled from body to the mind. Our body is now signaling to the mind, right? And all of this is using typically the vagus nerve. Like if we're calming, it's the vagus nerve. It's coming up into our brain. And then what's happening is we're releasing these hijacks that have taken place in our brain. We're loosening up the grip of the amygdala. We're allowing blood flow to come back into the prefrontal cortex. We're re-energizing. We're resetting. And then we get into the mindset aspect. Right now we focus on the mindset, but we've aligned our body. We've aligned our focus. We've aligned our body with what we want to achieve. So now the mindfulness part is just an easy drop in and we're ready to go.
Wow. It's so cool. And I love that you put it into that structure, because easy to understand. And, when you can understand something like that, it's easy to implement into your life. So
yeah, thank you.
I love that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, my next question, you basically already hit on it a couple of times, but I gotta ask it. So, my slogan is "Your abilities are infinite." What does that mean to you?
Well, we touched on this a bit, and I love that slogan, by the way. And I love you got it right up there above you. I love looking at the logo as well. Yeah. There's a couple of things that come to mind when I think about that slogan, right? And the first one is, as I mentioned, I think we rarely tap fully into our human potential. We don't quite understand who we are. And when we don't quite understand who we are, we never fully come into our power. Right. So let me explain this a little bit. We like to think, right? And we're raised, especially in the West, we're raised to really use our mind. All our training in school is to use our mind, it's logic. And so we like to believe that we are logical beings that sometimes have fits of emotion, right, that come to the surface. But the reality is that we're actually emotional beings that sometimes have fits of logic, right?
I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, we're driven by our emotions, whether we pay attention to them or not. We let them sweep them away or we ignore them. The reality is that there is just this if you think of an iceberg, right? An iceberg is 10% above the water, 90% below. And 10%, that's our logical mind, who we think we are, right? It's our thought. It's a lot of times we think we're our thoughts. We think that this is all almost like we just completely live up here. And the reality is we have all these unconscious programs, limiting beliefs, these patterns we've learned from childhood. And there's literally research that's shown our brain has like a system 1 and a system 2. That is a pattern matching. System 1 is pattern matching, very low cost. System 2 sits on top to monitor. It's a higher cost. But also our emotions, right? Whether we pay attention to them or not. All of this stuff is really that 90% of the iceberg under the water. That's what's determining where that iceberg goes, not the 10% on top, right? It's that 90% under the water. Yeah. And so I think there is such an ability to tap into infinite abilities by starting to get down into that unconscious layer, by really understanding I actually go on to describe this even further in my Overcoming Impostor Syndrome course, but we really understanding who we are allows us to really center, to come fully into our power and untap unbelievable abilities that we never even knew we had. We never even knew we had.
Yep, I agree 100%. So thank you so much for sharing that. And then how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my site is johnhallcoaching.com, johnhallcoaching.com, or you can just search John Hall Breathwork, and you'll find me that way. I'm going to come up in Google that way. And so either way, you get to my site. One of the things that I love to share, I shared this Overcoming Imposter Syndrome course. And what I do is if you go to my site, you register, you're going to get the first 2 weeks free. So you're just going to get to use the course for free for 2 weeks. That is more than enough time to go through it. It's just a 5-day course that you can walk through a short 15 minutes every day. And I have a series of lectures kind of explaining what's going on to your degree, right? Shifting that belief from I'm not good enough to, hey, I'm just beginning, right? Shifting that mindset. And then we use breath work to really get in and shift the operating system level that we're working with, right? To shift that identity. So it's a very powerful course. And again, it's just my gift to anybody who's your audience that's listening. Go out there to johnhallcoaching.com, sign up for the Overcoming Impostor Syndrome. And that is my gift to your audience.
Thank you so much. And I know that I am going to go sign up for that course. So
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. Thank you. And then do you have any last words of wisdom?
One last thing I love to share. I love this question. I appreciate so much the opportunity to come on here and share this. But, I tell people all the time, we can let our past define us or describe us. And what do I mean by that? We all have had different journeys to get to where we are in life. And some of those may appear harder than others. There are others that may look easy, but you have no idea how hard they may have been. And a lot of times we carry that past around with us like baggage. And the reality is that we can allow that past to define us. And we can say, well, I can't do this because I'm too old or I'm too young or, this, whatever the situation may be, right? Or we can allow that past to describe us and say, yeah, you know what? This is the journey I've been on. This is what I've been through. But the reality is there is nothing. That description has absolutely nothing to do with where I move from here.
Yep. I love that. It really goes along with how I live. I live by saying, instead of saying you can't do something, ask yourself, how can I? That's what I do every day, basically all day long, because I have a physical disability, cerebral palsy. So every day I got to overcome challenges. And I could just look at it and go, oh, I can't do that. That's too hard. Or I can go, how can I do that? And then I problem solve and I figure it out. So, I'm really glad that you shared that. Thank you.
Spot on, Nick. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. This has been so helpful. Thank you so much.
Nick, thank you for the opportunity. I'm so glad we connected and got to do this.
Me too. All right. I'll see you next time.
All right.
Thank you. If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me here, the Nick Hart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone, remember, your abilities are infinite.